So, as I mentioned in my post on YouTube last week, I stated that I wanted to make this project an open source project because if you go to the internet, you'll see there are many different component libraries, especially for React, that are already built out there, but a lot of them are not open source. They are commercialized. They operate under .com, not .org. Some of them they take donations from companies or from other developers, but a lot of them are totally commercial. They are totally private to themselves, okay, and they are not open source. So I wanted to start out something, especially this component library, whatever we're doing in this project. It's a super simple project, okay. It's all about UI. There's nothing complex going on. So I initially thought that I would make all these videos and then about developing all these components, and then in the end look for people to see if they are interested in working on this project together. But then I decided, well, I think it would be a nice idea to get this going on early in this phase rather than me waiting to complete all those components, complete all the documentation sites, and then inviting people. But I think it would be a better idea if we start doing this right now instead of waiting until the end. And this is for those people that are interested in contributing to this open source project. But if you are not interested, if you want your own component library, if you want to do everything on your own, you are free to do that. There will still be videos that will be coming up. As I stated in the actual plan, in the initial plan, there will be many components that we'll be building, and don't worry, I will make videos about all the components that we'll be building throughout this playlist, or at least those components that I currently have in this project already. Okay, so before I jump into anything else, let me give you a quick overview of what I have until now for this entire project. So this is the documentation site. I'll come to this in just a bit, but let me first show you a GitHub repository for modjs. Okay, so if you go to my GitHub account, Prashant Parasani, github.com, Prashant-Parasani, you can click on one of my organization here. The first one is Full Stack Pro. That's for my private one. I did some moving around here. All these repositories that you see, some of them were in Full Stack Pro.io organization account. I moved all of them to my personal account because I wanted to manage things a little more nicely. Okay, but if you come to organizations, you'll see that there is this organization modjs, and there is this one repository that I have until now called modjs. It is currently public. If you go to github.com/org/modjs.org, modjs.org, you'll come to the same page and you can view this repository. All I have done to this repository until now is made one commit, and this is kind of a bigger project, and I only have one commit. This is really bad. We will talk about this. Why is there only one commit? There shouldn't be only one commit. There should be many commits on this project up until now, but you see that I only have one commit, and that is the initial commit draft. So what happened was I messed up a little bit. And by that I mean that if you go to package.json and on the package name modjs/monorepo, you see that the version number is 7.0.0. This needs to be corrected, but I know that we cannot publish this package as version 1 because I had published this package a few times before for live testing purpose. So I think I published 1, 2, and version 3, major version, but I think this version 7 will go back to version 4. Okay, so when we finally do the publish, because if a software is version 7, then we expect that software to be somewhat robust, somewhat nicely written, somewhat very strong. So, okay, but this is not version 7. We will go back to version 3 or 4. Okay, so we'll talk about that when it's time for deployment. But that was about the versioning. And about this one commit, what happened was I did not keep track of, or I did not write a commit message to every single feature that I have been developing throughout this project when I was working on my own. And the commits message, all the commits got really messed up. So I decided that, well, instead of having all those commits, all those non-meaningful commits there. I would rather just have a single commit called initial commit that contains all the source code that you see on the screen right now. Okay, so what I have for this is you are very familiar with this structure by now. You should be very familiar with this structure by now. Okay, because this is the exact thing that we are doing in that playlist too, in the front-end web development playlist. This is the real repository for modjs. Okay, this will be the real repository that we will be working on directly on this repository. Okay, so if you look at it, everything is the same. We have, let's come to packages here. We have core, helpers, icons, and utils package, 4 packages like we had in that playlist. If we come to core, src, components, there are all these components, probably about, I think about 70 components that we have on the core. There are still more components that needs to be developed. And under helpers, there are some helper functions like I talked about. If you go to there, these are some of the helper functions that are used by the core components. Some of the core components like validate password length, password digit, validate name, validate email. These are all the helper functions. There is also icons package. So if you come to this icons package, which we did in the last video, and I will redo that video once again about the SVG icons, because I felt that the video that I did about SVG icons was not clear. I was missing things over there. Because we only copied SVG code from some other websites, external websites, and then we put it as a React component. We still will do that, but what happens when we want to build out new icons, or we have new ideas for maybe for the logo or maybe for the icons? I will do a video about those icons, and we will do that completely from scratch using Inkscape. Okay, so I missed that in the last video, but I will make a new video about how to create a logo or an icon or UI icon completely from scratch using Inkscape, and how we can integrate that as a React component. Okay, so that video will be coming up. But under icons, under components, these are all the icons component that exist in this project right now. And all these icons component, all the components that you see in this project are tested using Cypress that we have been doing. Okay, but there is also another package, the utils package, which there isn't a lot going on here. There are just some theme providers, some system props that we already wrote. We also wrote this theme provider, but we still need to write tests for this. Testing is not done yet for the utils package. There are components. I think, well, they contain the same thing. We already talked about that, but there is hooks that contains this use media query hook that is used to determine users screen size. Okay, so those are the 4 packages, but I am so not satisfied with how the project is. I'm really satisfied with our project structure. I'm really satisfied with where this project is headed to. But if you go and try to read any of the source code and let me know how pain in the back it is to understand some of the components here. So if you go to box component, I believe this is really simple to understand. There is nothing much going on, even though there are no any comments there. The code is not, maybe I have been repeating myself a lot in some of these, but you see that there's no comments at all. This is not a good coding practice. Okay, but that box component is simple to understand. But let's say that if we look at some of the a little complex components, for example, this carousel component. So this carousel component has a lot of things going on, and there is not a single comment. So I really want to improve on this. I want this code to be super readable. Up until now, when I first started this project, I thought that I would work on this on my own and not have any people. But as soon as there are other team members that are working on the same project, all this code has to be commented. They have to be readable. It's not readable right now. Even when I maybe particularly this component, I'm really familiar with this, so I can read it. But any new people, if they are trying to read this, it is really unreadable. So there is a lot of improvement that we can make in this project. Okay, that's carousel. There are some other a little complex Let's see that this confirm password field, again, very unreadable, no comments at all. Nobody knows what's going on in this particular file. Okay, we need to add comments on this. Same with the test files. The test files, well, usually test files don't need comments, but I think it would be a better idea to put at least some comments in there to separate different testing, to separate different aspect of testing that we are doing here. So there is a lot of things, a lot of things that we need to do to improve this project. Okay, and up until now I only have about 70 components, but there are so many other components that we will need to write we'll need to write in for this project. Okay, but I think for now, as a small open source project, I think this is all enough components, that most of the simple components are already there. There's drawer content, drop down, all these components. There is search component, there's search field component, there's also code editor component, there's font field, and these all components, I think they are good, but the improvements that needs to be made on this project is that we need to make each of the file, each code we need to make really readable. So in order to do that, we need to add comments in the documentation side, in this components package. I think besides the comments and more testing, I think everything looks good. But in the documentation side, if you go to the root and go to modjs docs site v7, for now I put all 4 doc site that we initially talked about in part 2 of this playlist, where we had a diagram and we wanted to do a micro front-end architecture. That is not done yet. I put everything under modjs doc site and v7 because this project is not that huge right now. But under this documentation site, if you go to app, this is built using Next.js. There are some file names that I want to change. There are some structures, folder structures that I want to change. For example, this pages, it looks good, but this common shared context wrappers, I want to get rid of these folders, and then have all these 4 folders under components folder, and inside that components folder, maybe I want to have another folder called forms, modules, system folders, which contains code that relates to those particular folders. Okay, so but this is the documentation site, and again, the same as the component site, there's no comments. Code is a little hard to read, and this documentation site, you'll see it over here. Okay, I already wrote all the APIs for all the components that exist until now, but there's a lot of improvements that needs to be made. Okay, so what I was planning was we would work on this together for anybody that is interested. And please know that this is not a job, this is not an internship, this is not a paid position, it's nothing like that. Okay, please understand that this is an open source project. If you are interested to learn how things work in real world, in real companies, how they work in a team, I think it would be an impressive addition to your resume and experience. But please remember that this is not a paid internship, this is not a paid job. I don't think we'll be working remotely whenever we want, whenever we feel like it. Okay, and we will contribute to this project as a team. But let me show you. So that was what I have until now for the code. So now let me go and show you the documentation site, what I have until now. So this is the root, this is the home page for modjs v7.0.0. again, that version number we will go back to, we will make this version 3 or 4. Okay, I don't remember exactly the last published version that I had in npm, but we'll need to look at that once all those components are done. But this is the root page. Okay, there are just some introductions here. I have all these links for the 4 packages, core, icons. I have the documentation site for them, but for the utils and helpers package, I have a link to GitHub repository. And if I click on get started, well, I can click on that drawer, I can click on that, go to GitHub repository. It is going to take me to the repository, but there's this drop down that displays these 3 links. So if I go to modjs core, it is going to take me to this root page again. And I have simple code editor that just gives some sample, which can be improved a lot. If I click on getting started, this is the actual documentation, and so there's an installation guide. Okay, there are links here that points to, and these are all generated with, most of these text that you see are generated with an AI. This is not something that I wrote, because if I sit there and write contents for all of this, there are all these components, all these APIs I need to write the documentation for, but we will eventually make this human written, okay, and not written by a UI. But most of this text content that you see on this site here is written by ChatGPT, okay. But this is the installation. If I can go to next page, click customization. This is how the component library can be customized. I can also, let me switch to dark theme here. It's bugging my eyes a little bit. And just to also show you the functionalities I have until now, I can switch to dark theme, refresh the page. It is still dark, looking good, okay. I can go to another page, and this is going to take me to this Accordion API documentation. So these are all the props that an accordion would accept. So children, variant, nest, and default open. And these are the system props. So we did this, remember that it was the with system props hired a component. So this with system props hired a component applies to every single component. So that's why this exists in every single component's API page, okay. So that's the accordion. And again, you see that for the documentation side, I've done a few things. As I scroll down the page, you see that there is this link here, this transparent link that also goes down as I scroll down the page, and this is depending on which section I am at, of which section in this main content. This is the middle section, is the main content. Depending on what section I am at, this link highlights the current section that we're at. I can again scroll down, that highlights that we are in these sections here, okay. So that's that. And again, if I refresh the page, you see that the current page, that's React Accordion, is highlighted. If I go to let's say a box component, you see that the box component is getting highlighted. So these are all the components that I have. I also already have the documentation, the links for the testing purpose, because there are several links that you see on the site. Testing, end-to-end testing is not quite done yet. Well, it's not really done at all. All I've done is tested, wrote an end-to-end test in order to test links. Like if I click on core, am I actually going to the core URL? Like those are the tests that I have written until now, but it is not complete, okay. But there are other components such as tooltip component. Again, the API documentation is completely done, but I also want to eventually, not right now, there is not the priority right now, but I also want to eventually have, because this is a API page right now, I also want to have the component page where we showcase all the components that exist under modjs, okay. I think that would be really helpful for end users using this. But I think for my purpose, for your purpose, if you look at this documentation, and like anybody can know how to use these components just by looking at this documentation, okay. So that's what I have until now. Same with the, well, not with the icons, that is all, but there are so many things that we can do. There's also search field that I implemented. So if you want to search for typography, you can just type in typo, and then that will take us to typography component. Okay, so I think these are all the things that I discussed in part one when I showed you the demo and documentation. But this is what I have until now, okay. So I wanted to work on a team and see where this project can be headed, to see how much better we can make this project, okay. But if you are interested in contributing to this open source project, okay, I think it'll be a great addition to your resume. Your name will pop up here. We can and this is not really a hard project by itself, because these are just UI components, but the core here is to learn about DevOps, about how to work in a team, how to work in a team for this is somewhat going to be a large code base. So I think you will gain an immense amount of knowledge, like in real world application, how people work in real world. I think you will get a lot of that knowledge. And I think for now we can if you are interested in joining this, I think for now we can start working with GitHub and get all this component done. Also get the README done, get the documentation on GitHub itself. We'll need to write a lot of other things here, but here all I have is just some information on how to start something in Cypress, but I did not do that for the docs. That also needs to be done. But what you can do is, if you want to try this site on your own and see what I have until now, you can go to this repository, okay, modjs repository. You can clone this repo, okay, you can copy this, and then you can clone this in your local computer, and then if you run, like there's an instruction here, okay, so if you want to run anything in Cypress, you can just follow these steps. But if you want to run the documentation site like this one, what you have to do is, instead of npm run test core from the root directory, to run the documentation site, you will run npm run start docs. Okay, so this is the first script. I forgot to add it there. I will add it in the documentation so that you can actually start the documentation site and see it for yourself, everything that I have on the site right now. Okay, but if you are interested, I think the first thing we can do is go and because GitHub usernames are public, okay, it is not a security issue, but go and provide your GitHub username down in the comment section below, and I will send you an invitation to join this organization, join modjs, and then we can go from there. Okay, so go and comment down your GitHub username, or if you don't want to do that, you can also send me an email, or you know what, just go and comment down your GitHub username, and then I will send you an invitation to join this organization, and then we can go from there. Okay, so I think that is it for those are all the things I wanted to mention on this video. If I forgot anything, I will keep updating you about this on future videos, but in the next video we will go back to writing some of the other components. Okay, so I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.